Cool. Awesome. I want to thank everyone being part of this workshop. This is our second workshop of the year. Today, what we're doing is we're going over financial wellness. So this is basically, or this might be a summary for some people. This might be a start of your financial wellness journey for others, right? No matter what, this is important information to know, even if it's just a recap of what you already know, or like I said, your first time into it. So for those of you who haven't been to our workshops before, I'm Chris Price. I'm one of our certified financial planners here. And really my job is just really to teach financial education. So for those of you, like I said, who haven't been part of this before, this is something we do every single month. And we're going to talk about a different subject each month. For those of you who have been to this before, I want to welcome you back and hopefully you get a lot out of today's workshop. So how we start every single workshop is the same, defining what is financial well-being. Now, financial well-being is a term that's not titled or made by myself, by company, or even the industry. It's actually defined by the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau, which is an agency designed to really protect consumers. And how they define financial well-being is these four sectors. The first one is having control over day-to-day and month-to-month finances. Think about basically having a budget, understanding what your expenses are going to be, and being able to manage and tackle them. Next one is having the ability to absorb a financial shock. Now, this is super important. This is why you're always going to hear people in my position preach about having an emergency savings. Things happen in life that are unexpected. Can we manage that, or is it going to spin us into a scenario that we don't want to be in? The third one, being on track to meet your financial goals. Now, mind you, that being on track to meet your financial goals is key. Right? Although everybody may not have a financial goal, even though I want everyone to, it's a lot harder to be on track for those financial goals. Maybe there is some kind of financial setback that kicks us off. Are we on track? Are we going back to the drawing table to make sure that the adjustments that need to be made are made to keep us on track? And last but not least, just having the financial freedom to make choices that allow you to really enjoy your life. Maybe it's taking that extra day off. Maybe it's going out to eat. Maybe it's a little gift for the spouse or the family, whatever the case might be. Just really having that. So, what's on today's agenda? First, we're going to talk about savings. Everyone needs to save. It's often the foundation of all our financial strategies. Next, we're going to talk about investing. Now, many people may be apprehensive about investing. So, we're going to discuss a few overreaching concepts that will hopefully make it seem a little less daunting. Then we're going to discuss protection. Now, protection planning is probably one of the more important ones to have for most people and most overlooked because we don't want anything bad to happen to us. Retirement planning, and last but not least, we'll talk about estate planning. So let's talk about savings. So like I was saying earlier, savings is really the foundation of every single financial strategy. And we all really know how to save, right? You identify the cost of something you want. Maybe it's a down payment on a home, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a vacation. And then you determine how long it is till we get there, right? Maybe it's tomorrow, 5 years, whatever the case might be. And then you determine how much do we need to save in order to get there. So we're all kind of really familiar with how we save. But sometimes we have to make sure we remember what we're saving for, like an emergency account or something of that nature, or savings or large purchase or something along those lines. The key factor I want you guys to take away from savings isn't how important it is, but how we should do it. So often, savings for most people is an afterthought. I'm going to spend what I need to. I'm going to pay my bills. I'm going to live through that month and I'll save what's left over. The problem with that is you're giving other people your money before you're paying yourself first. You should consider savings as a fixed expense every single month. You should pay yourself and automate those savings. So maybe you have money coming from your bank account right to a savings account. And then maybe every 3 months you could try to increase that amount to help with your budget and to help grow your savings. Investing. Now, investing is different than saving. Investing is about putting your money to work for you. Now, mind you, investing also has the possibility of risk. Basically, you're putting your money to work and you're hoping it doesn't get fired. Right? But we can be smart and detailed about investing. That doesn't limit risk, but it may mitigate unnecessary risk. So, first thing I want us to talk about is kind of some of the more general, let's just say, stock or investment options out there. One of them being like stocks. You'll also hear your companies call them equities. Now, when you buy a stock or you have equity, you are purchasing a share of that company. You also see us discuss bonds. Bonds is referring to debt that we're going to loan an institution or company money, and they have to pay us back. We'll also see us talk about, too far. You also see us talk about mutual funds. Mutual funds are grouped investments, most popular in your 401ks that you might have, or other investments like that. So, the first rule of investing is diversification because it's going to help mitigate risk. The reason I want to bring this up and the reason it looks like this on your screen is because this is a common screen or a common picture you're going to see your 401k and other investments like that have. You're going to see these three factors. You're going to see cash equivalents, you're going to see equity, and you're going to see bonds. So it's important to kind of know what that really is. Now, the key factor you're going to see is depending on how much you have in different areas will depend what your risk tolerance is. So if we were to look at our screen right now, we can see on the far left, we can see the aggressive risk tolerance. Well, we can see that aggressive risk tolerance has a lot more equities than it does bonds and cash alternatives. And then if we went all the way to the other side of our screen and we see they're conservative, we could see more bonds and cash equivalents. The reason I think that's important is risk tolerance is not only factored on things like age, capital appreciation, all the capital stuff you have, but it's also an emotional standpoint on how you feel about investing. So understanding what a more aggressive portfolio looks like and what a more conservative portfolio looks like, make sure that you're in line with your investments and how you feel towards investing. Now, I want you to know investing doesn't just mean we're going to buy those stocks, buy those bonds, buy those mutual funds, even though those are the most common. There are other long-term investment options like real estate. Real estate is a great long-term investment if it's done properly. Now, this could be buying real estate to flip. This could be buying real estate for rental income. This could be using your credit score to leverage that asset or not. But make sure that whatever you are doing, you're buying an asset that's going to appreciate under some value. You also see college funding. College funding is super important because it is a long-term investment. It's going to be a long-term cost for you. So what are we doing for college or for our kids' college, and how are we funding that? Maybe 529s and things of that nature. Cool. Protection. Now, protection is broken down in many pieces. We're first going to talk about the most common types of protection that we see, which is what in the industry they call property and casualty insurance. This is all the insurances that you have on things you own. Think of car, home, rental, personal property, general liability. These are things that we have on the things we own, the insurance we have on things that we own. So like for instance, if our house burnt down or something, God forbid, like that, they would help rebuild that through the cost they have. Next, very common insurance is health insurance. Now, this is a topic that keeps changing almost, I feel like, daily. But the good thing is a lot of times this is covered by your employer. And this affects, as you know, your health. Now, this could be a subject that takes our entire time period. So we're not going to get into too much detail about health insurance, but understanding what your health insurance is, understanding what options you have and what benefits you have is obviously super important because healthcare is not inexpensive. Life insurance. Now, life insurance is obviously something that we have to protect our loved ones. God forbid we were to pass. So everyone on this call, or majority of people on this call, probably are working. And if you're working, you're creating or you have some kind of income coming in. Well, what happens if God forbid you were to pass? How would your family or your loved ones make up that income? And that's where life insurance really comes into play. There's two main kinds of life insurance. You have term insurance and you have permanent. Term insurance is coverage for a time period. So maybe you'll have a 10-year, a 20-year, or even maybe a 30-year term. That means your coverage is going to last until that time period for that cost that you have. After that, the cost may increase. And permanent insurance is designed to last your entire life. Now, as you could imagine, because of the significant benefit in permanent insurance, it is a lot more expensive than term. So you need to outweigh the cost versus benefit, right? The inexpensiveness of term, but the lack of length in it, or the more expensive part of permanent, but the promise that your family will receive that money no matter what age you are. Disability income insurance. Now, this is what I see as being the most under, let's call it valued insurance in the marketplace. Most people, this is not a conversation they have, and they should have it. Now, statistically speaking, if you're 20 years old and you're going to start your career, let's just say, you have a 1 in 4 chance of becoming disabled. So there's a significant chance of this happening throughout your lifetime. But the term disability isn't one we think will ever hurt, will affect us. We see things like life insurance. Oh, it's not on our life, it's on our passing, but this one is named after that bad event. We also associate disability insurance with something that's going to permanently disable us, meaning take us out of the workforce forever. That's not what disability insurance covers. Yes, it will cover that, but the primary things disability covers is an extended extent out of work, maybe 3 months, 6-month time period. Doesn't mean you're not going to go back. It just means you've had a time period where you can't go back. I strongly recommend everybody look at their disability coverage. And if you're unfamiliar with it, definitely reach out to myself, one of our teammates, or whatever professional does your disability coverage. A key factor I want you to know is majority of disability only covers about 60% of what your salary may be. Now, that being said, that means if you became disabled, could you and your family live on 60% of your income? And if you can, great. But if you can't, maybe there's something we need to look at. Retirement. Now, the biggest thing about retirement is deciding what retirement's going to look like for you. This is the foundation to create the plan. So, where are you going to live? What are you going to do with your time? Heck, how long will it last for you, right? Are you retiring earlier or later? These are huge questions that we want to make sure are answered. We want to make sure they're answered because, again, they're going to determine how much we need for retirement. Once we determine how we're going to live for retirement, we want to create a budget of what that will cost us. With that budget, we're going to determine how much we need. So if we look at our screen here, we could generally see what a retirement budget looks like for most Americans. Now, this is a chart based on Social Security and saying, what do most Americans at 65 and older spend their money on? 35% of that is housing, 13% is transportation, 14% is on healthcare, 12% on food, 5% on entertainment, 17% scattered across the board. So this is generally speaking what most retirees spend their money on. Doesn't mean what you will, just means what most have do. So once we determine what we need for retirement, we're going to determine what other sources do we have for retirement income. Things like Social Security, things like pension, your personal savings, retirement accounts, annuities, other sources, whatever the case might be. How much do we already have for retirement or for those expenses in retirement, and what's the gap we need to make up? Cool. Last but not least, let's talk about estate planning. Now, I will tell you this, a lot of times when I start talking to a client about estate planning, they think estate planning, that's not really what I need. That's for somebody with more money than I have. And that couldn't be more true. Everybody needs an estate plan. everybody's going to get to a point where they're not going to be able to control their assets. Give it that they pass, give it that they uh, become a little incapacitated. But at some point, you're going to need an estate plan. Now, what does an estate plan really mean? It means you've established beneficiaries. What it does is actually smooths out transition from your assets, so the assets you own to the next person, next generation. It could help minimize taxes depending on your income. And one of my favorite things is it limits probate court and probate. If any of you have been through probate, you understand why I'm saying that. So, some of the techniques or some of the documents used in estate planning include things like wills, which is most common. Now, wills don't need to be formal. The more formal they are, the better. Wills are also read in court through probate. So just know what you're going to say on them. Trusts. Trusts are one of my most favorite tools when it comes to estate planning. If done correctly, it will help avoid probate. It will be able to control or protect assets after your passing. And gifting. Gifting is something we could do right now, and life insurance is generally set up for the next generation. Cool. So that being said, that's really what we had to talk about today. We talked about savings, we talked about retirement, we talked about investing, we talked about protection, we talked about estate planning. If any of you have any questions or want to reach out to us to learn a little bit more, there you can use the QR code on your screen to scan and schedule some time. That being said, I hope everyone has an amazing day, and I'll see you next month.